This is part C of the spending plan lesson in your money management unit. We left off last time and I had you complete activity 1.7, my income, in your student guide. That was on page 24. So I hope you were able to use the information on this page with the types of income to be able to predict what your monthly income would be. Now, right now, if you don't have a job, if you don't have any savings, so you're not getting any interest, your income, your predicted monthly income might be very low. That is okay. It makes predicting your income harder, but it's not impossible. What that means is that you're probably relying on somebody else, maybe a parent or a guardian or grandparents, to help you pay for your expenses throughout the month and throughout the year. Well, not only do you get money every month, but you also have to spend money. We've discussed the fact that your income is what you get, your expenses is what you have to pay. So when we're creating our spending plan, after we can estimate how much income we're getting, we also have to estimate our expenses. And there's a few different types of expenses that we have to discuss. The first type is a fixed expense. That's an expense that you know you have to pay, and it's usually regular payments. If you subscribe to Netflix, or you have internet at your house, or you have a cell phone, or you're renting a house or an apartment, those are fixed expenses. I know every month I have to pay $750 for my apartment. I have to pay $90 for my cell phone, and I have to pay $120 for my internet. Okay, those aren't all true statements, but you get the idea. Every single month I'm going to be paying a specific amount for these items. Variable expenses are something that you know, but they're irregular. For instance, groceries. I don't go out and purchase the same groceries every week. If I'm interested one week in eating pizza and another week purchasing spaghetti, they're not the same prices, so I'm not going to be spending the same amount. Maybe I have company over, so I need to purchase more groceries one week than I do for the rest of the month. So variable expenses, we know that we're going to have to pay them, but we're not quite sure exactly how much. We could probably come up with a range or a maximum amount that we're going to have to pay. And the last type of expense is a periodic expense. You know that you're probably going to have to pay it, but it's not every month that you would pay it, like your school fees. So if you started school, you know that you had to go to Walmart or Target and purchase school supplies. So those were upcoming items that you had to pay for, but you're not going to be paying for that every month. Christmas is another really big time where there are periodic expenses when you're working on purchasing gifts for your friends. That's another type of periodic expense. Now, when we're creating a spending plan, it's important that we budget and plan for all three types of expenses. Our fixed expenses, because if you don't pay them, something's going to be turned off. Maybe your electricity or water would be shut off if you don't pay that bill. Variable expenses, again, those are things that you need, like your groceries. Sometimes even your clothing could be a variable expense. You're not quite sure how much, but we could probably come up with a range. And periodic, those are probably the most important to plan for, especially because you don't have to deal with them every month, but when you do have to deal with them, they can be the ones that blow your budget. If you're not prepared to spend $60, $75 on school supplies, then you can really blow your budget in 1 month. If you're not prepared to spend $5 per gift on friends for Christmas, then you could really blow your budget there as well. What I'd like for you to do is turn to page 25 in your student guide. It says at the middle of that page, balancing act, the other side, expenses. So I would like for you to read pages 25, 26, and 27. They describe expenses. So go ahead and read those and pause this video. Okay, so now that you've done reading, you saw a lot of examples for each type of expense, the fixed, the variable, the periodic expenses. So on page 26, some examples of your fixed expenses were gym memberships, car loans, student loans if you go to college, and a cell phone bill if it's unlimited amount of minutes. Those are all fixed expenses that you would have to pay every month. Variable expenses, well, food and entertainment, like going out to the movies, those you know that you're probably going to be spending money on them, but they do vary from month to month. They also included cell phone bills again, and those are for pay-as-you-go phones. So if you just want to pay for a certain amount of data per month, you can choose a cell phone plan that is pay-as-you-go, and it's not a specific amount of data per month. Periodic or occasional expenses are auto repairs. If your car breaks down, you have to pay that. Car insurance, sometimes you might pay that more on like every 3 months. Mine is actually set up to be paid every month. So for me, that is a fixed expense, but you can choose to make that a periodic expense, and you only have to pay it every 3 months. And prom only happens once a year. So you might have to spend a bit of money on a tux or a dress. And if you want to get your hair done or your nails, items like that would be periodic expenses that we still need to budget for. At the top of page 27, it explained that our expenses sometimes are fixed and periodic, or sometimes they're variable and periodic. And they explained that with car insurance and prom. So they said that, it's not just an easy cookie cutter way to classify our expenses. Sometimes they're mixed together. So car insurance, it's a periodic fixed expense. It's periodic because it happens on occasion, but it's fixed in that I know specifically how much I'm going to have to pay every 3 months. So you'll probably want to set aside a specific amount each month to make sure that you don't break the bank when it's time to pay for your car insurance. Let's see. They also talked about the periodic variable expense as an example of being prom. So periodic, prom only comes around once a year, and I know that I'm going to have to pay for some prom supplies or some prom, not prom supplies, but prom clothing and accessories. So that is variable, though. I don't really know how much I'm going to spend. I could spend $20 on a dress. I could spend $300 on a dress. I could spend $50 to rent a limo, or I could just have my mom and dad bring me and my date to the prom. The variable expenses that happen only on occasion, like your auto repairs, those are really the hardest to plan for because you don't know how much they're going to cost, and oftentimes you don't know when they're going to occur. If I get into a car accident, I didn't plan for that, it happened, and now I have to figure out how I'm going to pay to get my car repaired and to have a rental car in the meantime. In the middle of page 27, you can see some expenses for Michael and Selena. So what I'd like for you to do right now is to look at each of those expenses and identify if they are a fixed expense, a variable expense, or a periodic expense, or if they're a mixture of the three. So are they a periodic fixed expense, a variable occasional expense, or a periodic variable expense? All right, so pause this video, go through and see if you can identify what each of these expenses would be categorized as. Now that you've gone through the monthly expenses, let's talk about them. So a cell phone bill, we already discussed that a cell phone bill could be a fixed expense if you pay that every month, or it could be a variable expense in that you pay it every month, but you're not quite sure how much it's going to be. It could be $12 one month and $20 the next month, depending on how much you use your phone. Nowadays, most of these expenses for cell phones are a fixed expense. You pay $120 to use your cell phone each month, or maybe you only pay $40 to use your cell phone each month. The pay-as-you-go idea as a variable expense is not very common anymore. Car insurance, they already explained that a car insurance is a periodic fixed expense, so you don't always have to pay your car insurance every month unless you so choose to, but it is fixed in that when you pay it, you have to pay a specific amount, and you'll know that beforehand. Food is a variable expense. We have to buy it every month, but the amount that you purchase could change. Gas, that is probably going to be a variable expense as well. you're going to need gas in your car to get from place to place. But if I want to take a trip, then that is going to add some extra expenses back and forth. Clothes. I could see this being a variable expense or periodic or occasional expense. If you are a person who likes to go shopping every week or every month, then you might have categorized this as a variable expense. You don't know exactly how much you're going to spend on that clothing. If clothing isn't something that you get every month, then maybe you listed this as a periodic or occasional expense. You only buy clothes for special occasions, or you only buy clothes every couple of months, maybe every season. So that could be a variable or periodic expense. Entertainment, that is a variable expense as well. You are going to do something fun, or hopefully you're doing something fun every single month. So that should be probably a variable expense. Personal care, that is another variable expense. Personal care is the money that you spend to take care of yourself, whether that's buying hygiene supplies like toothbrushes and toothpaste and hairspray and shampoo and conditioner and body wash. Now, I don't know about you, but I definitely don't need to buy personal care every single month. So this could be considered a periodic expense. You only buy it on occasion or every once in a while. It could also be a variable expense. If you're a person who likes to buy a new body spray every month, then this might be categorized as a variable for you. So I hope you're seeing that these categories, they're very fluid and they're very loose. The only one that's super, super important is that fixed. That doesn't change, but the variable and the periodic or occasional expenses, they could change from category to category. The last expense listed on page 27 is church. Now, if you've ever heard of somebody tithing, that means that they're giving 10% of their monthly income to their church. And so that 10% it's going to be probably a fixed expense. If your monthly income is fixed, you know exactly how much you're going to get each month. If your monthly income varies, then this would probably become a variable expense. I know that I'm going to pay it every month, but it could change the percentage that I give. You could also include charities in there, and those would be more of occasional payments. I give to some charities just once a year if it's for a good cause, but I don't give to them every month. So depending on whether you're giving to church and you want to give it monthly, you might call it a fixed or variable expense. Or if you're just giving to a charity every once in a while, that could be considered a periodic or occasional expense. So you really had the freedom with this expenses, trying to categorize them how you felt necessary. It's probably going to be a little bit different if you compared these answers with a friend because of how you all spend your own money. So you've seen some examples, and not only will you see examples, but you also are going to be, when you create a spending plan, estimating for yourself your variables. So for your variable expenses, you're really going to want to use averages. So on average, how much would you spend? On average, I spend $65 to $75 on groceries each week. That makes it about $250 to $275 that I spend on food per month. With periodic expenses, you probably want to split them into chunks. So here's an example. If I plan to set aside $100 a month to pay for the $1,200 car insurance, so if I have to pay $1,200 for car insurance, then I could split that up into $100 a month that I'm saving for my car insurance. Now that is super expensive. I don't pay that much on car insurance, and if you're a good driver, you probably won't be paying that much either. But that's just a really easy example. We can take $1,200 and divide it by 12 and see I need to be spending or saving $100 a month for car insurance. All right, your activity for the rest of this period is to use your spending log from activity 1.2 that I hope you've been keeping to group your expenses into categories. So you already know what your expenses are. If you turn to page 25, there's a little pie chart there. Go ahead and try and figure out how much you're spending in each of these categories. So the categories, again, are fixed, variable, and periodic. and try and place them on a pie chart. Now, if you're not sure how to do that, your teacher can help you. Just ask, and we'll review your pie chart in our next lesson.